Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for another episode of Leading on Mondays. My name is Florin. I'm so delighted to be with you today, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague Madalina Guinesco. Hi, Madalina.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again, Florin.
Absolutely, pleasure is mine. So, what do we have in store today for our viewers?
For our viewers, we have the topic related to psychological safety at work. And I have some questions prepared for you, Florin, if you want to share your opinion on that. And I would like to start with, in your opinion, what is the definition of psychological safety?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's kind of a buzzword, if you like. I see it used in many instances, but I think from my experience is when we can feel at our best in the workplace. What I mean by that is that we're not worried about making a mistake. We're not worried about the consequence of making a mistake. We're not worried that that will be used against us, right? We're just able to focus on the creative work that we need to do, because whenever we worry about all the other things, we're not really bringing our whole self to the table, and we're not really bringing our creativity to the table, because unless we are able to focus on the work and we're not worried about making a mistake or kind of watching our behavior or watching our actions because they might be perceived in a different way, unless we're able to focus on our work, we're not really bringing our whole self to the table. And I think for me, that's what psychological safety means. What
Mhm.
have you found? What do you think?
Well, I was actually thinking of the to divide the psychological safety into two words and try to translate them or to define them each.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when I think about safety, I think about me being able to do my best without, let's say, being afraid. So, first of all, when I think about safety, I think about not being afraid. Psychological in this case is actually not an environment which is a physical environment like me when I walk on the street during night during the night. I honestly might not feel very safe because you never know what can happen to you, but that is that is a fear behind it. But when I think about psychological safety, I'm thinking about intellectual safety. If I
Mm-hmm.
am able to express myself, if I'm able to work in a good environment where I can, when I can be myself without thinking that I might do a mistake, and that mistake can be fatal for my work. And this is actually where I wanted to discuss with you, because I've been in an environment at some point in the past where I didn't feel safe, or maybe, let's say the company overall didn't have a very good approach on safety, on taking risks and making mistakes. And I was a little afraid of if I'm doing something, I might mess up with the company. I might mess up with the clients of that company. So that would be a big responsibility for me. And I often thought about this idea. If I'm in a company as an employee and I make a mistake, and that mistake can cost the company money and also clients. Of course, I won't be. I don't want to do that kind of mistake. Of course, I don't want to risk anything. But if I don't want to risk anything, and with the risk that I'm doing something bad for the company, how can I actually feel safe to do mistakes and to learn? Because learning means taking risks and making mistakes. And
Yeah.
how can I be able to learn from my experience and try to do it as better as I can, still making mistakes, but not that kind of mistakes that will put the company at I don't know, at risk. So if
Yeah.
you can say something from your experience, Fernin, have you faced this one in the past?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it?
Absolutely. So I can feel that, and I know how it feels sometimes of being on the team and not being able to take action the way you would want because you're afraid of the consequences or making a mistake. And I think this comes back to the company's approach to innovation and thinking about that, so many companies, they say we are an innovative company. But the next question that I ask them is like, how do you deal with failure? Like, because in order for you to innovate and create new things, you need to have a, a certain amount of failure, right? Trial and error. So if you don't try, it's impossible for you to innovate. And so the question is, how do you handle failure as a company? How do you react when some of your employees fail, right? And can
Mm-hmm.
you create a safe environment for them to try, right? Can they create something that is not necessarily maybe affecting directly your business, but somewhere that they can, a safe test environment for them to try and fail? And this
Mm-hmm.
is one of the things that, so what I have found, and this is something that we also seen in some studies that came out of Google, they have found that there are three things that leaders do when it comes to creating this psychological safety at work. And one of them is avoid blaming others, right? So when something goes wrong, and it's not if something goes wrong, it's when something goes wrong, because there will definitely be some things that will go wrong. As long as we try new things, we will fail. So when something goes wrong, what great leaders do, they don't try to blame people, they don't try to look for guilty, to say it was someone's fault or someone else's fault. And they make it so subtle that it's in the language that we're using, right? Instead of saying, Madalina, what did you do, they will say, what did we do and how did it happen, right? So all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's the we, and it's not you or me, it's the we. It's giving the impression, and not only the impression, like really meaning it that way, that we take responsibility for that action. Everyone in the team takes responsibility. So it's a we. What did we do and how did that happen? And how can we make sure that this goes better next time, rather than this never happens again, right? Because when
Mm-hmm.
I know this is when we made mistakes and we start to now analyze what happened. One of the questions that usually you find in this kind of fault tree analysis, or five questions, or whatever method you use, one of the questions are, how do we make sure this never happens again? And how can you make sure that you don't fail, right? By not trying anything. You don't try anything, you're not gonna fail, right? So that's
Of
not even the
course.
question, right? So the question is, how can we make sure that we do this better next time? In other words, we will definitely gonna fail, but we're not gonna fail at the same thing. We're gonna fail at something else that we have not failed yet, right? So using that language pattern, with we, how did we fail, or what did we do and didn't work, and how this worked or how this happened, and what can we do to make it better next time, helps a lot when it comes to not blaming other people. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And this is it's a good point when you said if you don't do anything, you won't make any mistake, or you won't make any mistake if you don't do anything, or when you don't do anything. And I remember I was in a different environment in my past jobs. I remember I was in my first year of development. Um, so I'm on a software developer as a career. Yeah, so I write code, and in my first year I was actually at a company where I was learning how to develop the software. And I remember at some point, still I think it was have 6 months after my employment started, and somehow they were having a go live. The company was having a go live with a client, with an important client, and they were working a little bit also overtime to finish everything. And we did something small to the team to help the project. And at some point somebody said that the project is not working. Well, the software is not working anymore, and they didn't find the solution. What was wrong with it?
Mm.
And they search and search for 2 hours or something like that, and they didn't find the reason why. And they asked us, did you do anything in that one? No, we didn't do anything. What we did something that it was easy, like something small. No, we didn't make project fail. And after some time in this process, my manager, because he was also involved in this one, found out that I deleted by mistake one line that made the whole project to fail. And
Wow.
I said, "Oh my God, this is." I didn't even realize that I did that mistake. They didn't realize that I deleted one line. Well, of course, the software had version comparing when they could find out that there was a line before and then the line wasn't there anymore. So somehow they find out the problem, where what was the cause of the problem. And I remember I was actually thinking to myself, because it was my first year of employment and I didn't know how to handle this. I was said, "Oh my God, I will be so fired. What will I do next?" I said,
Wow.
"Oh my God." And guess what? I had a true leader as my manager, because he didn't say, like, he didn't blame on me. He didn't point fingers at me and say, "Yeah, yeah, you did that. No, 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 you didn't. You shouldn't do that." So in this case, he actually found out the problem. He showed me how to be make sure that I don't delete anything from now on, and how to compare the code from previous version. And yeah, they carried on with their project, and everything was fine, with 2 more hours of work for them additionally. And that for me was a very important lesson, because I didn't was in a position to somebody to blame me, because I did a like a silly mistake, but I wasn't capable of identifying it first. And second of all, I was very careful from that point on how I write the code and how do I handle the situation. So, in case somebody else, because I'm also mentoring other people to do the same thing as I did, um, if they do something bad, I know that there is a version in the code that can save us a lot of time and effort. And for that one, as a conclusion for any leaders, like you said, they need to, or you as leaders, you need to create a safe environment for people to fail, and not to make any serious damage to the company or projects or clients. And in that situation, if you don't blame the blame on the people, it's actually helping them to gain trust, and to make
Absolutely.
sure that, okay, I will be very careful from now on, because I know the consequences. You really need to understand, if you make a mistake, the leader should also explain what is the consequence, because if you don't know the damage you've caused, you might not understand, and you might do it again next time. And other than that, create a safe environment for them not to feel scared, because if I would feel scared from that point on, I wouldn't work at that company anymore, because I said, "Oh my God, if I do something I don't know about, I'd rather not work in this environment than feel very afraid every single day."
I think
So
about if you would
that's my
have
good.
had, yeah, sorry for
Sorry.
interrupting. Think about if you would have had a different type of leader that wouldn't have created that kind of environment for you. That could have meant that you never tried to do something again.
Yes, definitely. That would be. I would have thought of that afterwards if I had a bad leader in that case. I definitely wouldn't do any mistakes. I wouldn't, let's say, be proactive and choose some activities that I would like to take. I would sit back and said, "No, no, no, just you say what I need to do, and that's it. I don't want to take any responsibility of my actions. You tell me what to do." So
Right.
that would be another a big responsibility also on the leader, and the employee wouldn't take any blame from that, because I don't want to do that. You say what I need to do. If I do a mistake, it's your fault. Me, the employee, I'm telling you as the leader.
Yeah.
So that would be a very different situation, and definitely wouldn't encourage any proactivity from the people.
Yeah, and this also, because what psychological safety does, it actually creates that environment for us to be able to take risks, right?
Yes.
And knowing that even if we gonna take a risk, and even if that might not work, what we're able to do, we're able to know that what we tried, we learn out of it, and we can now do it again in a different way. The worst
Mhm.
case is like you just shared. I don't want to take any risk because I don't know how this is going to be used. What if this is used against me? And so that's the opposite of psychological safety. And I shared there are three ways leaders build that. So one was avoid blaming, right? Avoid blaming. The second would be show your people that you're engaged. In other words, like think about being in a meeting with a leader, and he or she being immersed in their computer. Because how many times have you sit on these kind of meetings, and everyone comes in with their computers, and instead of listening to the meeting and what's being said, they're kind of answering emails or doing something else. And think about what kind of message does this send to your team. So how can you
Yeah.
create that kind of psychological safety? Means also I'm here and I'm listening. Because how many times I've been on meetings when the decision maker was not paying attention. We presented the case, and then we ask, "What do you think?" Oh, okay. So can you repeat that? I said, come on, okay. And this is exactly why we're here. You invited us to this meeting to present this, right? And so, as a leader, it's very easy for us to think that when someone comes to speak with us, and we still have, maybe the last two sentences in an email to write, or maybe we have, a messenger, a Slack, something popping up. It's very easy for us to say that, well, let me just finish this. Or actually, that will be the best thing to do. Say, hey, Madalina, I'm sorry, I know you have something important. I just have, to finish this. It takes me one more minute, right? And then I will be with you. Rather than trying to, pay attention to the person while you're typing, because you cannot multitask, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a leader, creating that psychological safety means that I'm here, I'm present. When I'm in a meeting with you and you are speaking, I'm looking in your eyes, I'm making eye contact rather than looking somewhere else. Because it's, we believe that these things are not, well, I'm here physically. How many times were we physically in a place and mentally somewhere else, right? We
Many
talk,
times.
right? And when we talk about employee engagement, which is one of the, holy grail of, being in business and leadership, we're talking about the person being present there, now, here, right? And how can we model that if we as leaders are not there, right? So
Mhm.
on one side, avoid blaming others to build that kind of trust. Show your team that you're engaged, and also include your team into decision making, right? Why this creates a psychological safety is because they know that when they come with ideas, right? We had covered this in one of the previous episodes a few weeks back, when you shared that, what happens when someone has a really good idea, they present it to their managers, and then nothing happens with that idea, right? And so
Yeah.
how can a leader create psychological safety? By making sure that they involve their teams into, decision making. Is that it doesn't mean that everyone has to agree on the decision. What it means that everyone has an input in the decision, but then as a leader, I need to make sure that I take input from my team, and I need to make sure that I explain to my team why we made this decision. Because we also shared, as a team member, I might not see the whole picture. Like my manager, my leader would see more of the picture than I see, and I don't see the
Yes.
implications of this decision. But if, as a leader, I take the time to explain why we make this decision, and we explain, the consequences and the implications of that decision, it's much more likely for the team to accept that decision, and to buy into that decision because they know
Yes.
why, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly. That's the secret. That's the secret. If you explain your decisions, then people will be, even though they don't agree with the decision, at least they will be involved in, first of all, in explaining, first of all, in the decision making, because you asked for their opinion. We also had that one. We had an email for everybody, that the CEO explained some decision that they made for the whole company, and he was already I really like this one. He stated that this decision, you might not all of you be you might not all agree with this decision. We understand it, but with this yeah, so showing the big picture, they state that that was a good decision to take for all, for everything that was involved in that one. And I really like that email because it in somehow it explained a lot. And it's very important for the team, for us to understand that we are listened to. And even though we don't agree with the decisions that people are making the on the higher levels, at least we need an explanation. And also just for leaders, this is a good example that I'm also using when I have the leadership game sessions. If you don't know how to deal with this and you have children, the leaders have children, just try to tell your child to do something without explaining why.
Mm,
Okay, they definitely will ask you, why do I need to do this?
yeah.
If you say, because I said so, I would say you're a bad leader in this situation. Sorry for that, but I also had examples when I was a kid that my parents said, "Ah, you need to do that. Why? Because I said so." And I said, "What's that? I cannot use that one." So I did something, and I didn't know why I need to do that. And when I had the explanation of why do I need to do that, then it was exactly as you said, and it was easy for me to buy into the idea. And I have a reason, a very good reason. I can internalize that reason into my own, and do it with more pleasure, or do it with like with a goal. I do this because of that. But if I do this and I don't know why I'm doing this, that's not good enough for me. And I will try to find out some answers from other places, maybe other companies. So you
Yeah.
need to remember that, leaders, be aware of this. Explain the decisions, explain why somebody needs to do something, because it's even better from psychological point of view. It's even better for them to explain the reasons why, and then they will buy into that idea, and they will do it with more pleasure. And
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, in our last minutes of Florin,
Hmm.
I have another question because okay, we talked about what is psychological safety, what are the let's say the tools, or the what should the leader do to create psychological safety. But then another question remains, because I also, in the leadership game, we have a card that says, "Does your team feel safe to discuss with you the good and the bad ones, the good and the negative stuff in your team?" And is another card with the question for the employees usually: "Do
Hmm.
you feel safe to take risks into your team or your organization or not?"
Yeah.
And with this card that we are using, we actually discuss a lot, and the leader is aware of the opinion of the members. But from this card, I would like to ask you now, Florin, how can a leader evaluate if the team is working in a psychological safety? How can I
Mm.
make sure that I am creating a safety environment with my team, for my team? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this reminds me of something that I read in a study by Google that I mentioned earlier. One of the leaders, Paul Santagana. I'm going to read this because I don't have it, memorized. It says that in Google's fast-paced, highly demanding environment, our success hinges on the ability to take risks and be vulnerable in front of others. And I
Mhm.
think the last part there, being vulnerable in front of others, says a lot about if we have created a safe environment for our people. Because what
Mhm.
is more, what is a better indication for us as leaders than people feeling vulnerable? I mean, feeling, you know okay to share about their challenges, and you
Mhm.
as a leader knowing what's going on in their private lives. If you don't know that, if they don't bring it to work, neither in the group setup and neither in your one-on-one discussions, then you don't
Mhm.
really know about your team. one question when I coach people, and this is usually leaders, and they ask me, Florian, I don't know exactly what motivates my team. And this is after we been through some of our assessments and they realize, oh, I don't really know my team. So Florian, how do I know now how to motivate them? And I ask them, tell me what is your people's dreams? Like what does Madalina dream? Like if I would ask your manager, right? And more often than not, they don't know because
Yeah.
dreams are not things that are necessarily related to. I didn't ask them what does Madalina wants from the workplace or from her job or from her employment. I ask the person, what does Madalina wants? What's her dream? And in other words, when Madalina comes back from a weekend, what does she talk about? What did she do during the weekend? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And when Madalina is excited, what she's excited about. And I'm not talking about work, I'm talking about anything else, right? When you look at Madalina's Facebook and LinkedIn profiles, what do you see she cares about, she likes, she follows? And when a leader does that kind of work, right, they will realize, they will know what makes you tick. And this is outside of your work, right? There is actually a really great book that I recommend leaders many times. Is called The Dream Manager by Matthew Keeley. This is a fantastic book. And the whole idea of that book is that a company has, it was a cleaning company, and this is, imagine someone cleaning toilets. It's actually not their dream job, right? You don't go to a cleaning company because, oh, I have a dream to clean houses and clean offices and clean toilets. No, but what they realized that each one of those employees had a dream. Some had a dream to send their kids to school. Others had a dream to build a house. Others had a dream to move to the United States or create a vacation for their kids or for their parents. And so when they were able to, they created the position called dream manager. And this person's job was only to discuss with people on the team and realize, and kind of uncover what are people dreams. And then as a company, they're made, special funds, and with those funds they actually contributed to a person's scholarship, to a person, bank loan, or they loan money to the person. All
Mm-hmm.
this to help people achieve their dreams. And all this was outside of their work. This is a commercial cleaning company, right? Was not a leadership company. So it really pays for us to spend that time investing in our people. So to answer your question, the short answer is when people are able to be vulnerable in the workplace, they bring their whole self to the table. They talk about their passions, their setbacks, their tragedies, everything. And when you ask a leader, what is your team member's goal, and he or she knows that, that's when the leader has created that kind of environment, which allow people to open. And so now he or she knows that. Otherwise, most leaders that I speak with, they don't know,
You don't
because
know.
this is not
Yeah.
something that it's natural for us to talk about those things and to create that environment.
Yeah, that's a next level for a manager, and I understand that when you don't feel you trust your team or the colleagues, you won't want to share your dreams with them.
Oh,
But that would be a good point for managers and leaders to know, because I would like to introduce our next topic
absolutely.
for next week,
Sure.
because uh, for teams to work together in a good environment, in a safety environment, they should have trust first.
Hmm.
Exactly as you said at the beginning, they should have this trust among each other. But how we as leaders manage the conflict between members? So that would be the topic that I would like to discuss with you next week, with some powerful questions for our leaders to know and to put into practice. So how do you
Absolutely.
say? What do you say about that, Florin?
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I had some challenges in the past that I had to manage, and also I've been working with leaders that had conflict, and it's almost impossible for us if we have a diverse team to not have any kind of friction in the team, right? So this is a very common question that leaders have. So next week we're going to discuss about how to manage conflict in the workplace. And if you have any question for us, just drop it in the comments. We're going to pick it up and we're going to discuss it next week. And if nothing else, I look forward to see you next week, Madalena.
Likewise. See you
All
next
right.
week.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Let me just put this out.